Now you are, yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get started in a few seconds early. So, as most of you who were here last week will recall, we're not going to be routinely saying the pledge every week, but I am going to start this evening off with an inspirational thought, and I kind of thought Alex was going to be here to do this, but I do have a backup. Hasn't signed in yet. So in ancient times, a king had a boulder placed in a roadway. He then hid himself and watched to see if anyone would move the boulder out of the way. Some of the king's wealthiest merchants and courtiers came by and simply walked around the stone. Many people loudly blamed the king for not keeping the roads clear, but none of them did anything about getting the stone out of the way. A peasant then came along carrying a load of vegetables. Upon approaching the boulder, the peasant laid down his burden and tried to push the stone out of the road. After much pushing and straining, he finally succeeded. After the peasant went back to pick up his vegetables, he noticed a purse lying on the road where the boulder had been. The purse contained many gold coins and a note from the king explaining that the gold was for the person who removed the boulder from the roadway. So the moral of the story is that every obstacle we come across in life gives us an opportunity to improve our circumstances. And while many complain, others, such as Rotary, are creating and opening opportunities through their kind hearts, generosity, and willingness to get things done.
Nice.
Each of you will be given an opportunity to choose your own inspirational thought as this year progresses. Alex, as club admin, is going to be assigning individual members to give the inspirational thought at the beginning of the meeting. So he is going to be getting in touch with you for that. So welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. And I think that as far as I've seen, the only guest is not really a guest. He is Ray Green, former assistant governor, and then we have Bruce, who is our current assistant governor. Welcome, and thank you everybody for signing on. We don't have any birthdays to celebrate this week. We don't have any Rotary anniversaries to celebrate this week, but Ed and Chris are celebrating. Where is Ed? Is he still here? Yes.
Yeah.
Ed and Chris today are celebrating their 57th wedding anniversary. Is that correct, Ed?
That is correct. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You're a lucky man, Ed.
Been a fun ride.
Well, that's great. Well, you all have a night. I hope you're going to do something celebratory tonight, or have done so already, or at some point celebrate that occasion.
We're hoping to do something this evening, yes.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to open up the floor for happy thoughts.
Jump in. Someone's got to be first, so go ahead. Nobody has happy thoughts?
I told you my happy thoughts already. I got to go to ride my Harley to Vancouver and then to Seaside for 4 or 5 days, and then back up to Mount Hood for my grandson's 10th birthday. Haven't seen him in 4 months. It was so nice to see him again. And he's big. He's 10 years old and he's almost as big as I am. His feet are about that big.
I just had 2 grandsons and their wives out here for about 2.5 weeks. Feels like 2.5 weeks. They're like 6'4" and 6'3". I feel like a midget, and they ate me out of house and home. I am not kidding. I went to Costco and spent like $500 or $600. There's nothing left, but they were fun.
So my happy thought, I'm going to share with you a picture of here. Janine, my lovely fiance, decided that there was a cat that just had kittens.
Oh
and
my God.
He decided to go down, and the cat's here and the kittens are here. And we are having the cat fixed because it's a barn cat. And the little baby kittens are probably about maybe 2.5 weeks old. And we're gonna foster them out here in a little while. But I come down and get a kitten break every once in a while when I'm sitting here. So little baby kittens. So that's my happy thought for the week.
You know, Larry, go ahead.
I got to go spend, I was going to go down for a day in West Seattle to see my 4-week-old granddaughter. And I was tricked into being there to help my son shovel 7 yards of gravel. So we had to stay overnight and finish on Friday and come back exhausted. But I tell you, haven't held a 4-week-old for a long time, but probably before this week is out, we're going to have our other one. My daughter in Eugene will be delivering her baby.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Nice.
As crazy as it may sound, I went like computer silent today after checking a few things and went and weeded my yard, listening to audiobooks in the sunshine. And normally weeding is like, ew, but it was really cool to walk down to my office tonight on the way to Rotary, and the lawn is mowed and it's weed whacked and the weeding was all done and the garden looks really awesome. So there's nothing like looking at a hard day work and just go, it's pretty. Now I know tomorrow there'll be weeds in it, but as of right now, it's really pretty.
Okay, I have a happy thought.
Go for it, Mary.
The end of May, my youngest son announced that he would be retiring from Boeing. And my heart nearly stopped. I'm old enough to have kids retiring from Boeing. But he did, and we had a virtual parade for him, and kind of a real parade. Yeah. And that wasn't enough. He had friends there. They had to stay in the front yard because the family could only, kind of a real parade. That wasn't enough. And they had a parade. And then we all had dinner, and then after dinner, apparently they were gathering. I had gone and put my nightgown on, so to speak, I was told. And a knock was on the door, and they said, "You need to come out. Scott and Jenny need to talk to us right now." And I said, "What for?" And they said, "We don't know. You just need to get out here." So I go out in my T-shirt that goes to the floor and sit down, and nobody knows what's going on. Well, they came out and gave a little happy speech about the wonderful day and blah, 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 blah. And at the end, he says, "And we have one more surprise for you." And we all looked at him like he was crazy. And he said, "Jenny and I decided we'd get married tonight." We went, "What?"
Wow.
They've been together 10 years. And so they decided to get married that night. And he said, "We just happen to have someone here that could do that for us." And he calls his brother up, and his brother performs the ceremony. Oh, now, one tried to kill me by getting married, and the other one almost killed me because he was a minister for the night. So I don't know how all that happened, but everybody lived happily ever after.
So he's retiring from Boeing and getting married, and that all happened on the same night?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. And of course, my older granddaughter had to yell, "Grandma, you're in your nightgown." Now, that wasn't real cool.
Anybody else?
We had another great crabbing weekend. We limited out one day and almost limited out another day. So We're doing well craft season so far. I did have, since Bruce is here, Bruce, do you have anything to say from an assistant governor standpoint?
No, we just had the swearing in. I got sworn in just like everybody else does at the beginning of the year. And we're looking forward to a lot of stuff from our new president, Carol. And she's from Chilliwack, just like our previous governor was. And there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out in the next few weeks on her year as the district governor. So we're awaiting what happens there. And it's a new year, and everybody's kind of feeling their oats, as you are, and all the other clubs are doing the same thing, and so it's great. I do have a happy thought. I took my two granddaughters up to the Pacific Northwest Riding Academy up in Oak Harbor on Saturday, and they're both are how to English ride with English saddles. It's interesting. It was a lot of fun, and it's an amazing place. That's where Lauren Poole and Anne Marie we're keeping their horses. There's about 40 horses, and they got these huge arenas and stuff. It's quite the place. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, and Alex has just signed in. Alex, I gave a happy thought for you. I mean, the inspirational thought.
And Alex, for the record, you look like somebody who wants to be incognito in some crime thing on ID, just to let you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about being late, y'all, but do you want me to still do the inspirational thought?
No.
We already did it, babe.
Oh, you already did it. Okay.
Would you like to
Cut his sax though.
Oop, Charles, Janice.
What happened in the spring?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on. Ron, back from his fly fishing trip to Colorado, is going to be kind enough to give us an update on where Island County is with COVID and where the. Ron, you're up.
Thanks, Jim. Hey, you probably just heard California is closing up again, which is a little different than our state. So I'm going to give you a little bit of perspective of where we are with the state and then with the county. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So with the state cases are increasing at a pretty good clip. Most of it's in the counties of Yakima, Chelan, Douglas, and Okanagan. And the increases are pretty significant. But the good news is the hospital rates are not going up as much. In fact, they're fairly flat, which is really good news. There is some concerns from the state that the positive percentages from a statewide level, they have 4 reference points. June 13th, they were running around 3.9% of positive cases of the number of tests that were given. In June 20th, 4.6. June 27th, 5.1%. And the last time they took it was July 4th, and that was at 5.3. So you see the percentages of cases that are coming in are being positive. So they're very concerned about that. A lot of it is driven by the younger patients under 35. So they're very concerned about that, and that's a big transmission of cases. The number of beds, we have in the state about 14,500 beds available. Of those, 450 beds have confirmed cases of COVID. So very small amounts, but there's a couple of things they're concerned about. As you know, the state of Florida and Texas and Georgia and Arizona and California, they're really getting hit hard. They're getting hard by both cases and hospitalization. The concern is, are they going to be taking all the PPEs that we may need if there is a surge. And they're pretty much convinced from the state level that there will be a surge in the fall. So that is concern is the acquiring of PPEs. So kind of at the state level, they're kind of saying, okay, things are doing well. Certain parts of the state are seeing the big increases, but the hospitalizations are okay. From the county, I talked to Keith Higman today, knowing that we're going to be talking, and he said, look, we were doing really well through phase 1, through phase 2. Phase 3, we opened up on June 13th. And since then, 24 cases have come up, have popped up. That's up through about 4th of July. And so 24 cases, they're really strange. They're almost all from out of county. Almost all, because we opened phase 3, you're thinking people from the mainland are coming over and enjoying our prosperity of being phase 3. His concern was in the last 5 days, starting last Thursday, or Wednesday, I should say, there's five new cases right away. 3 from Oak Harbor, 1 over at Camino, and 1 from out of county. Those are concerning in the sense that we're seeing a lot more potential cases coming up. We've seen it with even at the hospital. We're seeing a lot of people being tested who want to be tested. People who are actually symptomatic and being tested. We opened up today because of the amount of people being tested, and we want to make sure that we're segregating those patients who are symptomatic out of our clinics, out of our hospital. We're back up to opening up, not a tent necessarily, but a separate entrance at the vestibule at the hospital from 9 to 12 every day, specifically set up for people who want to be tested. Either they're symptomatic or they want to go traveling and they need to require to have a negative case or a doctor's orders. So we're developing that. We're going to be testing in the Clinton from 9 to 11 every day, and over at our Cabot Clinic from 9 to 11 every day. It is a concern. Our PPE levels are very, very good right now. But at the same point, we know that has happened in other parts of the country. You open these things up. We know the 4th of July happened, and typically it's 14 days before you start seeing the bump. We know that in Oak Harbor, there was a party of around 150 folks, and a majority of them were unmasked. So we're going to see that. We know what's going to happen. We know that we're preparing for the surge. The hospital purchased a 15-bed ICU tent. We have 12 ventilators, which is more than the 6 we had before this darn thing happens. And we're quietly working on and I don't want this really public, but we're kind of quietly working on a respiratory clinic. That if you develop some respiratory illnesses, they're going to set you up to a separate clinic on the campus, so you don't go and you don't potentially transfer your disease to someone else who's not. So that's kind of where we are from the state level. It's kind of where we are from the county level, and that's what the hospital's doing to prepare for that surge that's going to happen. Questions? Jim, is that what you wanted?
Yes. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of Ron?
I do. When you say quote this fall, what is this fall? I mean, and I know, and I'm not asking you to like get out your crystal ball and say in October
12th, 2020 is
exactly. I'm not asking that, but I mean, because it seems to me we haven't really slowed down yet. So if you're already talking about it, so instead of a quote phase 1 or phase 2, are we just really kind of going on an ebb and flow kind of thing as opposed to?
Absolutely. As
okay.
Dr. Fauci just kind of said, he doesn't think we're out of the first initial phase. So we're kind of the same thing here. We have some parts of the state doing real well. And to tell you the truth, Island County is doing really well, even at phase 3. But there are other parts of the state that they're in phase 2 and should be in phase 1. And we don't want to be like California where you open things up and then you're going to close things down again. Not great for the workforce, not great for the health, the hospitals and the providers. So fall is when in the typical flu season happens. is why they say it's the fall.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Okay. Next, I think director's reports. Ed, I think, had something that he wanted to talk about briefly on youth services. So Ed, you're up.
Oh, good afternoon. It's unfortunate we're all sitting here in front of our tubes and not out on the beach walking. Anyway, let's get to work and get the job done. Our activities with youth services are focused, as you all know, on the Interact Club being formed at the high school, at South Whidbey High School. We have, in fact, carried over some students from our activities with the Flight Club. We have some students who are carryovers from the Key Club, which was the Kiwanis Club that decided to retract their support. And we have some opportunity with people who have inquired. The key target for us is going to be the first few days of school when the schools open up. Now, we know that's problematic when that'll happen, but we're going to see a number of individuals come to the school for the first time, either as freshmen, sophomores, juniors. The activity is triggered by the school in some cases where they hold club day, and the clubs have a table or form a ring or have some method of interviewing young people who are coming to the school for the first time, and to what degree would they be interested in the club. So that's kind of our focus, is to get the formation of the club as stable as we can from the new folks and the old students that have been in the club. And that gets us off onto some of the other projects that we're working on. And I'm going to let Bill talk a little bit about the specifics, but I wanted to bring up the fact that at our last meeting, there was a young lady came as a guest and sat in the room. And after a while, we got talking, and she indicated that she was one of the founders of a group called United Student Leaders, and apparently it's a very extensive group. Indicated that they have a mailing list of over 200 people, which include adults and individuals. So that triggered our interest to the extent that one of her particular interests was climate change, and that caused us to immediately approach Molly Carney, and we're hoping, we heard just now, that we haven't managed to catch up with her, but she sounds like a really good individual for helping us firm up this Interact Club, recognizing that what I want to call the services portion of this activity entails not only the Interact Club, but many other activities. And in future briefs, we're going to be able to give you a little bit more background on youth services in the broader scope and where we think the club fits that activity. So Bill, if you wouldn't mind, touch a little bit on the specifics of the Interact Club that we're dealing with right now.
I think you got it all, Ed. Mostly, we're working with Gwen on some PR for handing out to kids in the fall, and the young lady that Ed is talking about, Annie Phillip, is founder of United Student Leaders, an organization we'll want to watch. They're active both in climate change and racial justice. She is co-president of the Social Justice Club. A lot of energy coming out of that kid. She's only a sophomore, so we got her for 3 years, which is great. Molly will work on getting her together with you. She wants very much to talk to you. I think that's probably it right now. The recruiting efforts are going to be critical for the fall, but I think with somebody like Annie involved, we're going to have another star pupil who will be a center of interest. And she will be moving or wants to move her climate change under Interact. So that's going to be I think, a very big plus for all of us if we can get that started. So I'd say that pretty much covers it all.
I have one other I'd like to add, and that is we've talked and actually had her visit with us in our meetings. Jenny Kokenauer, who is the first line Hispanic language teacher, and she's also the coach of the tennis club for the group. And she has kind of taken us under her wing, the whole Interact activity, and particularly the Flight Club activity as of the last year and a half. And we have prospered based on her involvement as a school representative in our activities. She's provided us with the whiteboards, her classroom at lunchtime for meetings and so on. Well, the individual that's coming over with the demise of the Key Club is a gentleman, Roy Newton. He is called Don Carlos to the students. That's his middle name is Carlos, and he allows the students to use it. He is equally enthusiastic about it. He has some additional activities and duties with the school, so we're having a little trouble getting full advantage out of Don Carlos, but we believe that with Bill and myself and Don Carlos, and we'll get other individuals to work with us. We are creating something very, very unique, and we're very proud of the fact that we're creating the umbrella for a wide variety of student interests in a variety of subjects. The Flight Club didn't go away per se. The rules have changed, but the interest in flying is still there, to the extent that we have one student going off to college, Utah. He's already got his license, but he's going off to enter the aviation program. We have another student who's still working on it, and we have a young lady who is still working on her license. So that didn't go away. These other things have just become additive, and we'll give you more information here in the next meeting where we give you a rundown on the youth services umbrella that it provides for activities like the Interact Club. So if there are any questions, thank you.
That will be next month and not the next meeting, right?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Next month.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Any other directors' reports? Tracy?
Yeah, so July 25th is our garage sale. We got less than 2 weeks. I still need members to sign up for second shift if anyone is available. Second shift, we do need help loading up the Good Cheer truck. So they'll be there at 3:30. And also, I still need baskets for the silent auction. So if you haven't dropped yours off or signed up for one, you can message me. I will be at the salon all week in Langley. You can message me if you don't know where that is, but I'm down on Anthony's Avenue. We have 18 baskets now. I'd really like 7 more. So if you haven't signed up, that would be awesome.
We have one coming. We have one coming. So
you're already on my list.
Okay.
Tracy, we emailed each other, but I believe that Bill will back me on this. We really need for you to tell us, you've asked for some help from the students, and we think that we can, in fact, get some help from the students, but we need to know how many, where, what time, so on. These students, some of them are on vacation, some of them are out of town, some of them will not participate, but we need your details as soon as you can, so that we have a meeting with the school, with the students Wednesday.
Wednesday morning, so we'll meet with them at 10:30.
Okay.
We'll bring it up.
I think Sharon raised her hand for something. Sharon?
Yeah, I just want to let you know that membership is meeting tomorrow. And those of you who are on membership know that you've had several emails. We are having an in-person meeting on my deck where we will be distanced and we can actually talk to each other. And our topic is going to be how do we keep some folks connected that we haven't seen for a while. So hopefully by next meeting, we'll have more to share.
Okay. Molly?
We are starting projects up again. I'm trying to schedule a projects committee meeting, hopefully next Monday. So on call for that is Larry and Alex and Gwen and myself. And Jim, I've asked if you want to attend that first meeting. So we'll be talking about the projects that were approved last December, and I have been communicating with the project chairs to see if folks are wanting to reactivate those projects or not. And then if once I find out who is interested in continuing or not continuing the December projects, we will match them up with available budget funds because the board will be approving the budget on Thursday. So projects are starting up again. I'm also trying to get some activities that we can do as a club on a regular basis. So if anyone has any ideas for something that we might do, a standing once a month type thing, like packing food for Win or I don't know what, please let me know, because I think that would be helpful for us all to get more regularly involved. That's my report.
Okay, thank you. Alex, you're muted.
There we go. So obviously I messed up today's inspirational thoughts, but in the future, I'm going to be doing a little bit better job, hopefully being a little bit more on time, but I'm going to be assigning inspirational thoughts on a week-to-week basis for different people to kind of pick out something that they think is inspirational, and they can, speak on that at the beginning of each meeting. And I'm going to try to send those out like a month in advance, that little calendar. And, anybody I send it to, if they want to opt out, that's perfectly fine. It's not like it's required or anything, but, I'm certain that we all have different inspirational thoughts that we'd like to share. And so that's that.
Thank you. All right, I think that it's time to turn things over to Nick. Nick is going to be giving us our Rotary Assembly today, and he's going to be talking about the four-way test. He's going to be talking about the Rotary Fellowship Program and maybe even one more area. So Nick, I think I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Gwen, I need you to let me share my screen, please. I'm sure that whatever you said was lovely. Thank you very much.
You're muted.
Still, host has disabled screen sharing. So I'm still disabled.
No, you're not. You should be happy. You should
I
be
am happy.
Look, I was muted. I think personally, as a club, that should be like remembered for always that I was muted.
All right. So can everybody see my screen that says so much to learn?
Absolutely.
People are shaking their heads.
Yep.
So just for a little piece of context, I woke up this morning to one of my first communications being from Jim, who said, hey, I don't have a lot for the agenda today, so if you wanted to go for 45 minutes, that would be cool. And that's just not going to happen. So we are going to talk about three things today, and it's not going to be a 45-minute trip. So one of the inspirations for this presentation is that I think it's probably impossible to know everything there is to know about Rotary. I mean, this is an extraordinary organization with so many different ways for people to be involved and contribute, and also just to connect with other people. And so I have a couple things to talk about today that I think are sort of interesting, and a little bit about connection, a little bit about history, for those of you that may be new and or haven't heard my presentation about this 2 years ago. So the first item, it takes us back to 1923. It was a pretty boom period in the United States. The economy was great. There was a lot of innovation in new products and new services. And we're going to talk about one specifically tonight. This one happened before Tupperware, so that's how long ago it was. It was before
Avon.
Before Avon, the pyramid marketing scheme. It was before even Pampered Chefs, which absolutely horrifies me. Is everybody excited now? It was the high point for the Club Aluminum Utensil Company. You became a member of the club and you got this set of cookware, which today is prized at an incredible price. For those of you that are cooks, if you can find one of the originals, the major part of this feature, and Ed might appreciate this, major feature of this product was the way the lid fit on the pot was engineered very, very carefully for aluminum. In those days was difficult. And the fit of the lid on the pot gave a great cooking experience. So they promoted their tight fitting covers. So it was a boom period for this company. If you can find Club Aluminum utensils today, you should buy them. But by 1932, the situation was a totally different story. The company had 400,000 more debt than assets. Keep in mind, this is 1932. They got a loan to stay alive in the amount of $6,100 and hired a guy named Herbert Taylor to turn the organization around. And one of the reasons I like to tell this story is because I've had the opportunity to do some quote turnarounds of business units around the United States. And it really is one of the most challenging things I've experienced in my career. And one of the things that Taylor did was to focus on the people. And I thought that that was pretty brilliant. So looking around, even though they had increasingly stiff competition, they had good products, they had a strong brand. Their competition was characterized by fine people, and he was the first one to say that. But the company was still upside down by $400,000, which today would be over $7 million. So it was a big deal. His idea was that the solution is always in the people, something that I agreed with and still do. He felt that he needed to develop in the organization something which was something their competitors did not have an equal amount. Something really that we refer to in our company as the competitive advantage that can't be replicated or purchased by another company. He also believed that to be right was mighty and powerful. And while there were a number of other industries, and like many, they had a code of ethics, it was an extremely long document, impossible to memorize, and impractical to put to use on a day-to-day basis. He decided that their new yardstick, so to speak, should focus on the character, dependability, and the way their people approach their work with an attitude towards service. So this is pretty remarkable in 1932, especially for a manufacturing company, to think about the benefit of their product being a service orientation. He, again, focused on people. They were very careful in who they were hiring, and they were confident that they would win if they could make them better men, sorry ladies, and women as they progressed with the company. They needed a simple measuring stick of ethics, which everybody could quickly memorize, and that it should be a test that would not tell people what they must do, but make it possible for them to figure it out on their own. And I'm sure that we've all worked for places that had extraordinary rules and regulations and policies, and somebody in a back office someplace that was just generating memos and 3-ring binders of policies that were ultimately not very useful. His idea was to have a very simple test that people could use to apply to their work, and enter the 4-wheel test. He thought that this was something that if they could develop it into their organization, it's something that competitors couldn't have an equal amount. Talk about character, dependability, to be very careful in selection of their personnel, again. And out of that came a repetitive slide. One moment, please. Don't tell this Don't talk to my wife about this. I'll be in trouble. So he develops the four-way test. It doesn't go well. It's not really adopted. People started to accuse him of creating a cult or a new religion, but he stuck with it. And by stuck with it, I mean this happened over a period of several months. So he gathers his 4 department heads together, all men, sorry about that. And he writes in his diary that it's interesting to know that they were from 4 different religious faiths, a Catholic, a Christian Scientist, a Jew, and the 4th one being a Presbyterian. He asked them about what they thought about the test and how it interacted with their individual faiths. And they boiled it down to the notion that it's really really 4 elements: truth, justice, friendliness, and helpfulness. It coincided with their religious ideas, and it was entirely consistent with not only how their religion suggested people should live, but also it's consistent with the way that if applied in business should produce better results. And so this was the first document. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Not too long after that, and by too long after that, I mean 7 years after that, Rotary adopted this for the first time in 1943. So it's interesting to me to know that this is not something that came out of Rotary to begin with. This came out of industry. This came out of a guy who was facing a huge challenge and was hired to fix it. And he was creative enough to realize that the solution to his success was going to be in how he organized the way people think. And in addition to that, it got picked up by Rotary. He wrote, if you can't constantly apply the 4-way test to all your relations, 8 hours each day in business, you can't get it going at home either. And what he said is, by adopting this, you become a better father, a better friend, and a better citizen. Rotary adopted it in 1943, and Herbert Taylor went on to become the Rotary International president. No surprise. Any questions on the 4-way test? All right, let's talk about fellowships then. We are jolly good fellows. Steve Lingenbrink, who is a former district governor and I think is going to be eventually a Rotary International president, said something a few years ago to me that stuck with me, and that is people join Rotary to support their community, but they stay in Rotary for the fellowship. And I think if you look around the digital room tonight, we certainly see a great deal of that in our club. So I wanted to talk about Rotary Fellowships because they're a cool way to be engaged with Rotary, to be engaged with other Rotarians, and to expand your interests, your passions, your hobbies, what you're really keen to do with other people. It's a fun way to make friends around the world. A given fellowship is a global organization. So there are millions of people that are involved in Rotary Fellowships, and they really do enhance your Rotary experience. One of the other things about fellowships that are cool is anybody can start a fellowship. So if there's some variation of basket weaving that Doug might want to start up and that doesn't exist already, he can apply to Rotary to start up his own fellowship. And I'm going to send this presentation to Gwen so she can circulate it with the newsletter or whatever. But there's information about how to start a fellowship. There's guidance about what a prospective fellowship should look like. Once the fellowship has been approved, and it goes to the board, by the way, for approval. And once it's gotten, then people like Doug, who are really into meeting other Rotarian basket weavers, can promote their fellowship online and really enjoy the connections. So by way of example, I'm a member of the International Fellowship of Rotary Photographers. I think the last time I looked, there were something like 8,000 members in this fellowship. They're from all over the world. And it's more than just showing cool photography. Here's some examples. But there's a lot of photography that depicts local culture and local interests and local messages. And you can see some of those samples on the screen today. There's a great deal of nature photography. And I tend to look at it a couple times a week. in addition to looking at cool photography, people post questions. How did you make that shot? What do you think about this piece of equipment? How do you approach this kind of problem if you're photographing in a culturally difficult situation? So it's a learning opportunity, and constantly there's always a discussion of one kind or another that's going on. There's also a great deal of fun. For example, you get to see a shot from the party that was at Gordy and Sharon's last week. I mean, I think this is a really amazing piece of photography. You can laugh now. The Walla Walla Rotary Club did something interesting last year, and they solicited photographs from everybody in the IFRP. So that's, you know, maybe tens of thousands of people around the world. And the idea was they were going to put together a fundraiser where they posted certain selected photographs and did a show that lasted 3 weeks at the local college, the local community college in Walla Walla. I can't remember the name of it, and made the photographs available for sale. This photograph happened to go for $500, which was a huge surprise to the photographer involved. Somebody has an airplane going over.
I know, I'm looking.
So there's something for everybody. There's a fellowship for bathhouses, and I have no idea what that means. Couldn't tell you. Home exchange is literally that. If you're thinking about going to some distant location, your home's going to be vacant for a while. You can trade homes with another Rotarian for a week or whatever period's interesting. Travel and hosting is a big one. And as Jim pointed out last week, there's a whiskey. There's also, there are a couple of other fellowships that focus on alcohol, which for Rotary should be no surprise whatsoever. So this is a very partial list. There are hundreds of fellowships, and given how long we're going to be inside, unless out in public for a while, this is a great time to find a fellowship that you enjoy.
So Nick, this is George. I think that your triathlons and then your beer and wine go really well together.
Thank you. I think you should. And so George's water polo, right? You're a big swimmer. You could reach out and talk to people around the world about water polo or swimming or whatever.
Very cool.
And I'm way more a bourbon guy than I am a beer guy. So there are links in this presentation that Gwen's going to send around so that you can get your own information about this and about Rotary Action Groups. So in 2005, Rotary's board did something I think really interesting, and they formed this notion about action groups. These are larger than clubs. They're more than, for example, what Whidbey Island experienced with the 4 clubs getting together to raise money and buy PPE for Whidbey Health and other organizations on the island. They're independent, they're Rotary affiliated, but they're made up of not only Rotarians, but people in the locale that have an expertise or an interest in a particular area. It could be a professional expertise, or it could just be somebody who's interested in this, in solving a problem, in taking an action. And so it basically opens up the opportunity for Rotary clubs to have a greater impact, to get more people involved. They don't become Rotary members necessarily, although that's probably always one of the side effects of this. But they're largely focused on humanitarian impact, and people gather together and realize that they are stronger in a group and might bring, I mean, I would mention, for example, an architect, but we happen to have one. There are people on the island, for example, that have a lot of expertise and passion to do good things in the world, that if we gathered them together, we might be able to, you know, Molly might be able to see project chairmen that do even more impactful things, because really they're just bringing more people into the organization, into the effort to produce results. Every group has its own governance, but they're also operated in accordance with RI policies. Membership's open to literally anybody. Leadership of the membership of the action groups is limited to Rotarians, Rotaractors, and Peace Fellows. So there's a little bit of cohesiveness around Rotary policies there, and Rotary does sponsor action groups. So it's also a place for people to use their professional skills, do meaningful things, and it acts as a Rotary networking process as well. It's really done pretty well in 15 years. There are 27,000 action groups, members in action groups. They're big action groups. They're big local and international chewy projects. They're not basket weaving. Sorry about that, Cordy. But they're really a big deal. And they've spent almost $1 million in 15 years on humanitarian projects. Here's a background flyer that'll be in the document that Gwen circulates around, and last year's annual report. So here's a question for me. We're a small island. We have a really limited population. There are a lot of our neighbors that are in trouble. The opportunity for us to help and do impactful things is, I think, bigger and more urgent than ever. What if we had a Whidbey Island Rotary Action Group? What if we pulled people together, maybe formed an action group with the Lions clubs and all the Rotary clubs and other service organizations and churches, and picked a select number of things to work on to help people in this community that are struggling around the COVID-19 process. And there's a quote from Meg Whitman there that you've probably already read, but ultimately what she says is optimists gathering together get work done and produce results. And the last thing I want to say is wear your mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. That's it.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very
Nick,
much.
I would suggest the United Student Leaders be one of those potential action groups, because that's what those kids are all about. And they've got a list of 250 in other high schools even that where they do lots of different things or have lots of different ideas and starting with the kids would be they're dying to have help like we could offer them.
Well, so leaders are the next generation or the next age group up, or Rotarians or Peace Fellows. So while the Interact Club could certainly participate, leaders are limited to Rotaractors or older. And it's not my decision to start an action group. It's a process, and the process is described in some of the links that are in the document I'm going to send Gwen. And I think that this is something that really is sort of a board decision more than anybody else. Sure. But like a lot of things in Rotary, including our grants, one person can spark an idea that it very quickly becomes big, and it becomes big on a global basis. Mm-hmm. And if there were ever a time where some big global things might happen, kind of thinking in our lifetimes, this is it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to circulate the document around, and if it stimulates discussion, it does. I would be delighted.
Jim?
Nick, can I just say that I thought it was an excellent presentation?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. Could you say that again?
I just want to tell you that I said it was an excellent presentation.
Thanks very much, Mary.
So Nick, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What happened to the Club Aluminum Company?
You know, I don't know. That's a really good question. And in 2 years, when I repeat this presentation, I'll let you know.
So you don't know if they went bankrupt, or did they reverse their?
No, the history is that they did well in their phase. I think that they're not still in business at this point, because their pots and pans are collector's items. And if you go search Club Aluminum, I just don't have enough money. So anyway, still a big deal.
God bless Google.
Okay, what's the
cookware company, Retro today, aren't we all on this screen, Retro?
Right.
But when introduced nearly 100 years ago, cutting edge, blah, 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 they are no longer in business. As Nick said, they are incredibly valuable and are still, if you have one, they're still in good working condition. History, 1925, they are no longer in business. Collector's items, like Nick said. The club, boy, this is, I'd just like to say, if we need to fact check Nick, he's got it perfect.
I think Ed probably knows about this more than I do, but in 1923 to machine aluminum was a huge technology. Now, not that Ed was alive in 1923, but even early in his career, it was still a challenge in the aeronautics industry. So these things were the high-tech cooking instruments of our day.
And
And if I found one for several $1,000s, I'd buy one.
well, they sold originally for $10, and the lids could sell up to $50 in their day, and are now, quote, worth thousands. Can be worth thousands if they're in perfect condition.
No, I just have not that much.
Wow.
This is a list from the latest Rotarian magazine of all the Rotary Fellowship programs. So you can see there are a bunch there.
Yeah, there are.
Everybody check out Good Cheer. You never know.
If, any other questions of Nick?
I'll just say when I Googled it, I got a question of what are club pots made of?
I think aluminum, isn't that what we heard? Nick? Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting.
I think it could be aluminum. Could be aluminum.
So Jim, isn't the action group is something that you weren't sure if you wanted to tackle this year, but this is kind of an introduction. Excuse me.
So one of the potential goals was how many members of our club would become members of Rotary Action.
Well, I think it could be a model here. I mean, you know, Tracy's obviously got a big challenge thanks to COVID-19. Fundraising is a totally different thing in the nonprofit space. Molly's got a similar challenge in what does a project look like today? And when you think about the population of the island overall, there's only about 75,000 of us. Really small population, and there's a lot of need.
Nick, thank you so much for that presentation. It was great. You know, the four clubs getting together, I saw just as a foretaste of things we could do when we have 250 members working together rather
Absolutely.
than 25. So
That was an inspiring project. It really was.
yeah, and thank you for the Rotary Action Group. And for those who don't know who've ever been to an international convention, Rotary Action Groups each have normally their own booth at House of Friendship, and you can see all these. It's just amazing what they do around the world. My wife and I belong to the travel one, and we get stuff all the time, but obviously can't travel right now. But it's a great organization, and people welcome you in. But the next convention is in Taipei, and I'm sure there'll be lots of information on that. But again, the action groups are wonderful. They're, not the action groups, the one before that, the fellowship ones are amazing, and they do wonderful things around the world too, not just, you know, self-absorbed stuff. They do all types of projects themselves. So they're all out, even though they're out to have fun in their specific area, they all do service too. So again, thanks so much for that presentation, Nick. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Very much, Nick. Any other questions? Any other comments? Okay. Meeting adjourned. We'll see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.
Wow. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
I'll see you
Bye.
Thank you all for joining us.